Hello everyone, I am Adolfo. I'm a teacher from Alianza Inglesa, and today we will be looking at the first part of academic writing, which is the graphs, and we will focus on its most general aspects and considerations. Now, when you get to this part of the writing, what you will have to keep in mind is that you will find either a statistics graphs or just a visual graph describing some changes. Talking about the first type, referring to the statistics graphs, you could find different types. Of course, you will only get one of these. And these are the possibilities that you can encounter. For example, a bar chart where the information is displayed graphically in this way. You could also find a pie chart, which normally shows information in terms of percentages and changes in comparisons regarding these. You could also find a line chart, which normally shows information from a specific period of time. The information could be also arranged in a table, where the information is displayed in numbers in this way. And you could also find a combination of two different types, which could be called a mixed chart. As you can see in this example, there is a combination of a pie chart and a table. And now, talking about the second type, you could also find information displayed in a diagram. In this case, we could find a map where you will basically have to select information about what you can see, about location of things and different changes that could happen. You could find information in the form of a process diagram, which normally is a man-made process, or you could find information in the form of a cycle, which normally describes a natural process. Now, what should we keep in mind whenever we are faced with this kind of exercise? Well, first of all, let's keep in mind that you should write more than 150 words. If you write fewer than these, your score will be reduced. So you should be sure to write at least 150. A normal amount of words would be around 180 to 190, but just be sure not to write fewer than 150 words. This is really, really important. Also, you shouldn't spend more than 20 minutes on this task. You should keep in mind that you also need to write an argumentative essay. You are given 1 hour in total for these two writings, so please be sure to spend less than 20 minutes to finish the graph description. And additionally, make sure to describe all the information in detail about the graph. In this case, there's no need to provide arguments or reasons for this, your specific opinion. Just be sure to describe the information that is presented in the graph. Okay, so now let's focus on what we should be doing when we are faced with the writing task, part 1, the graph report. As you can see, this is how the information will be presented to you. There is an instruction at the beginning which refers to the 20 minutes that you should be spending on this task. You should be sure to finish before the 20 minutes. There is a statement that explains what the graph is showing. In this case, it says, the graph below shows average carbon dioxide emissions per person in the United Kingdom, Sweden, Italy, and Portugal between 1967 and 2007. This is what we're going to call later the statement. Then it says, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Of course, this is the recommendation for including information in the graph report. It says also write at least 150 words, so be sure to write more than that. And then we have the graph itself, where the information is presented visually. Okay, so before we write anything, we should make sure to understand this statement and to identify the important elements of the graph. Let's focus our attention first on the statement. As we can see, we should identify all the essential information that is presented. We should focus on what the graph is describing. So one of the main elements is, of course, the average carbon dioxide emissions per person. There is also the information of the countries where this information is taken from, and there is a time period referred to. We should always keep in mind these pieces of information, as it's always necessary to keep them and to show them in the report as well. But let's not forget about the graph itself. In here, there is information that often is not shown in the statement. For instance, if we look at the y-axis, it says that the CO2 emissions are measured in metric tons. That means that every time we mention the changes in quantities of these emissions, we should say that they are in metric tons. This is always very important. We should always take a look at the graph and see what information is presented in the axis, such as units, such as years, amounts, other pieces of information that might not be mentioned in the statement should be considered from the graph itself. Now, there is a very important step which involves identifying the main trends. Of course, in here we're referring to the main changes or the most important features of the graph. Now, the first thing we should analyze is, in terms of the statistics graphs, are the numbers from one point in time only. That is, for example, to say they refer only to the numbers in a specific month, in a specific week, only in a specific year, or do they refer to changes that happened over a period of time? So from one month to a different month of the year, or for example, from one specific year to another year, which would be referring to a dynamic chart. This is the case of our example. So since the changes happen over a period of time, we should be focusing first on how the numbers change from the beginning of the period to the end of the period. Also, what are the points of increase and decrease? Or what are the points of fluctuation if the changes in figures are more irregular? And just as we are focusing on increases and decreases, we should keep in mind what are the peaks and the lows. That is to say, the highest or lowest points or numbers during the period of time in the chart. After we have identified the type of chart, now that we know it's a dynamic chart, and after we have identified the main elements of the chart, we should make groups of comparison. So these groups should illustrate the changes over time and how the numbers are compared if they are similar or contrasted if they are different. For this case, we could make a couple of groups, and the grouping should be very straightforward here. The first group that we could make is composed of the countries with the highest numbers at the beginning of the period, which in this case are United Kingdom and Sweden. And the second group is comprised of those countries which started at the lowest numbers in 1967, which are Italy and Portugal. All right, and now that we have collected the necessary data, we should be ready to start writing our graph report. Now, this process is really useful because it will assure you that you will know exactly what to write in your graph report, and then you will only need to apply the proper structure and write the report. So, if you want to know how to do this and how to write the corresponding paragraphs to create your graph report, please make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next part where we will explain exactly how to do this. So if you found this video useful, remember to give us a like. Don't forget to follow us on our social media. You will find all of the links in the description down below. And stay tuned because in our next part, we will explain how to start writing the graph report step by step. This was Adolfo, and I'll see you in our next video.